We are back with you now on Weave Listens Live, back with our takeover show with Kentucky Beef Council, helping you out with some recipes throughout the show today. And hey, maybe entertaining for your family and friends is high up on your list of things to do this spring. Well, it's never been easier when you're working on some customization here and some handheld options. So Kelly Barrett is back with us here to describe some of those handheld options and walk us through what you decided to bring here today.
Yeah, so what we have with us today is more of a handheld option. Maybe you're making a sandwich board, want to have a few options where you can just kind of bring a bulk of steak and then create some options. So what we have is a makeshift Philly cheese steak. We don't have necessarily the green bell peppers, you know, but the provolone cheese, the steak, and the sub hoagie bun. And then we have a Caesar salad sandwich, so everything you love about a steak restaurant on a hoagie bun. So this is just the common romaine with the Parmesan cheese, the Caesar dressing, and the steak as well. And then we have a balsamic blue cheese steak sandwich. So this is, again, just a spring mix with some balsamic dressing and some blue cheese crumbles right on the steak. But this is all the same cut of meat. I cooked it all at the same time, just kind of can show how you can stretch your options as well.
Going back to what we talked about in the first segment too, let's say that you wanted to make these, make this go further. This could be 3 different lunches for 3 different days during the week,
yeah,
and they're all completely different.
Yes, so you have very similar ingredients. Again, maybe you have some cheeses which will keep longer in your fridge, so you can pull those out. But other than that, you're really stretching the groceries that you're buying for the week or for a month, really, and being able to make some different recipes, whether you're entertaining and taking it to a group of people or just for yourself throughout the week.
You talked about how for this specific these specific 3 recipes, really, that you made here today, that you cooked all of this meat at the same time. So let's talk about the meat itself. And some of the benefits of you using this lean cut that you brought here, something like a flank steak or a skirt steak. What are the benefits to using that type of meat?
Yeah, so it may be really intimidating too when you see a flank steak or a skirt steak because it looks like so much meat. It's kind of rolled over in the packaging when you see it at the store, so it looks maybe like a really thick cut of meat.
You might think, I don't need this much
yes,
food, right?
But it will roll out. So I got about £1.5 pounds of flank steak at just Kroger. It was about $18, and it's really, you have to think too about the price per serving and the price, because I know you see price per pound, but also the price per serving.
Right.
Because this was $18 that can be stretched over about 9 or 10 different recipes if you're making it for one person, but could feed all a family and have leftovers.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting point to make, and it's so when you think about grocery shopping and ways that you can cut down on costs, because I think about nowadays with inflation and the way that everything is costing in restaurants, something like this just by itself probably $18,
yeah,
and now you're able to stretch that and use it for a host of different recipes throughout the week.
Yeah, and it's no secret that beef is one of the more expensive proteins, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
There are inexpensive ways to purchase beef at the grocery store and feed your entire family throughout the week.
Let's talk about on the price point question here. For what you use to make these, you said the cost about $18 for this?
Yeah, for this one, and then that's what you can find a range. I was looking, this one was about $18. I saw one for $15, and then I saw also one for $30. That you're probably going to get more.
Right, just depending on the size.
Yes.
Okay. What about people that say, I don't usually cook with this type of meat, and sometimes I fear, well, maybe the leaner cuts are going to be tougher. Is there a way, if that's your worry, to make these type of cuts more tender?
Yeah. So one of the big things that you'll see a lot, if you go especially to kybeef.com, we have whole sections on how to cook with meats from primals that you're not maybe as familiar with. I think the most common is going to the loin and the ribs, so we have our ribeyes and our sirloins.
Right.
But these coming from more of the chuck and the skirt, you're going to see marinating as a large thing. I know that when you come to tenderizing a mallet is what kind of comes to head.
It does.
One of those is just kind of be, but other than that, soaking the marinating, so if you're able to just put it in like a sealed Ziploc bag, something that's airtight, freezer safe, freezer and fridge safe.
Easy way to do it.
Yes. So a lot of that is soaking it. Lime juice is a big one. There are a lot of fibers in leaner cuts of meat like these that we've used for these sandwiches, but lime juice and some, even just your normal salad dressings, we can talk about too, putting just like a balsamic vinaigrette. Obviously you need to like the flavors because the meat will soak that up.
Of course.
But those will break down a lot of the fibers, creating the beef and allowing it to be more tender. And alongside that too, the flank steak you're going to get is going to be a large when it's grilled all together or just sauteed on a pan. It's going to be a larger cut of meat. You aren't going to want to cut against the grain because cutting against the grain too will cut up those fibers and make it more tender as well.
That's a good tip to know. Okay, keep all these things in mind, and it's easy. And speaking of easy, these seem like pretty simple ingredients here, and this is maybe a good option for something on the go. Maybe we're picturing a potluck or derby parties. Is that kind of what you had in mind when you said, okay, I'm going to create this specific recipe to bring on listens?
Yeah, if you're anything like me, a lot of the time you see on social media is the charcuterie boards, but taking them to maybe outside of the charcuterie realm, but you have dips and you have trips. So this would be easier just to have a stack of buns, the steak, and some veggies, and you are able to customize it just with a bunch of different dressings.
Why is it so important when we're talking about customization for people to try out different cuts of meat and see what they like? Because I'm sure these are recipes that you could make with different types of beef that you might be used to, but why is it important to try different things and figure out kind of that sweet spot as a consumer?
Yeah, so a few things too that you may fear that kind of make it important to try new ones are finding the leaner cuts. I know heart health is a huge aspect when looking at red meat, but there are heart healthy options. They just are the leaner cuts that we most likely don't know how to cook as well, which is the flank steaks or those other lean cuts. So with those cuts, buying those, even if you don't know how to cook it, and maybe you're watching and you thinking, well, this isn't even that really helpful. At kybeef.com, there's a primal cut down on the parts of a cow, and if you find the cut, you can look it up. Maybe you're at the store and you see a sirloin. Maybe you just don't know how to cook. You can look it up in our search bar and recipes will come up for that cut, as well as finding it even on beefitswhatsfordinner.com. So those are really great ways, but just having the new ones, you may find a cheaper cut that's easy to fix for your whole family, and you've changed the dinner scene for your family.
Exactly. And now once you start to learn it, then you know it, and now you can just take that forward, and it's easy. Okay, well, stay with us here because we've got one more great segment to go. Coming up next here, our last segment with Kentucky Beef Council. We're going to talk a bit about food safety and how to properly cook that beef.